Anna, how'd you meet Stacy and Paige? You want to tell us that? Remember that? Remember where you met? Huh?
At the hospital.
At the hospital? Did you go visit them? Were they in there and sick, or how'd that work? Oh, you were in there.
My heart.
You had some heart problems?
You do.
There you go. Well, tell us the last 6 months, and that's really when, I know that you guys met Paige first, and she was doing some photography at the Ronald McDonald House, and that's where you guys are right now.
Well, actually, at the moment, you can only stay 45 days at Ronald McDonald, then you have to move out for 2 weeks, then you can come back and stay 45 days and move out for 2 weeks. So that's kind of hard on somebody who gathers a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But when we came to the hospital in March, and they had to pull out the tube and put her on hemodialysis, we started staying at Ronald McDonald House. And my husband texted me, he said, Anna just had a seizure. And so I went running over there because she hasn't had seizures since she was 4 and was in kidney failure at that time. But her electrolytes were so bad, that's when they get medevac to Galveston and gave her a 90% chance of not making it through it. And so he said that I came over, and it looked like she was starting some seizures. And we were really concerned. They put her in the hospital and got her on some seizure medication, did an EEG and all that. In May 4th, actually, we had signed up at Ronald McDonald House to have her picture taken. There's several pictures of all the kids throughout Ronald McDonald. If you guys ever get to visit, they're awesome. They're the kids that have really stayed there. And we had signed up to be able to have her picture taken by Paige when she comes on Friday. Well, that Tuesday, she was in dialysis talking to Dad on the phone while he was in Midland, and she said, Daddy, I don't feel good, I gotta go. So we hung up. The nurse practitioner and I were watching, standing there by her talking. We looked over at her blood pressure, and it was very low, like 50/20. And her pulse was at 40 and dropping. And we're like, are you okay? They call the code, which means everybody on the team to be able to do CPR came running, as well as the chaplain and everybody. They got there, and by the time they got there, she was not breathing or anything. They put her on the gurney. Put her on the gurney, and we raced over to the emergency room, where they did several times doing CPR on her. She would go into what's called VTAC. She'd have PVCs where her heart was messing up, and then she'd go into VTAC where the monitor was just going like this, but you couldn't feel anything, and it wasn't pumping through her body, and she was just a grayish purple kind of color. So they did CPR and drugs, meds, and they kept doing CPR. The only reason they didn't intubate her is because after they would do CPR, she would come to and she'd go, okay, there's more people in here now, what's going on? And then she'd be gone again. And they were really kind of, that was an interesting thing. But about almost 2.5 hours later, the doctor came over and she was talking to me, and she said, you know, yeah, I think it's time. I'm a nurse, I work triage, I know that you can't make it through that long of CPR and still have anything mentally. And so my nurse side said, okay, let her go, you know, and the other side said, no, keep working on her. So the doctor went over and talked to the other doctors. They were going to let her go. And I said, Lord God, if she can't come back as Anna, then take her right hand and walk her out of here right now. And about 3 or 4 minutes later, she wakes up and goes, Mama! And I said, I'm here, baby. I'm not going to leave you. And she said, I can't remember my verse. And I said, what? She said, Isaiah. I said, Isaiah 41:13. She said, that's it, for I am the Lord your God. You say it. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. And the doctors are like looking at her and looking at me and looking at each other. They don't know quite what to do because she shouldn't be alive, let alone mentally there. It shouldn't have been. And they finally got her stabilized. Right after she said that, she went again. They didn't see her again. Once they got her stabilized and we were going up to intensive care, the doctor said, you know, even though she came to and said some things, her retardation isn't going to be as bad as we thought it was going to be, but she'll have a lot of short-term memory loss, maybe long-term. And that night, well, actually, another miracle was going on in Midland. My husband was trying to get here. He didn't realize it was as serious as it was. And he said he was going to borrow a car and drive. It takes 6 or 7 hours. And they're very close, and I was so worried about him not being here when she went. And I said, Gary, you don't understand. They're doing CPR on her now. And he's going, oh, oh, oh. And he hangs up the phone, called the airport, Southwest, had a flight in about 15 minutes, and it takes 20 minutes to get to the airport. They held the plane. He got there. He was talking to our son on the phone, and a lady next to him overheard his conversation, and she said, do you have transportation in Fort Worth? And he said, no. And she said, my friends are coming to pick me up. We're going to take you to Cook, and we're going to go and pray for that little girl. So they got to the hospital, and she was up in intensive care. She had all these leads all over her, and she was on 100% oxygen and really out of it. But we were able to control her with medication whenever she would have those PVCs. And so my husband got there, and these 3 friends, they came up, picked the intensive care unit, let them all in. So we were all standing around on his bed praying, and praying. They left, and then I went back over to Ronald McDonald to get some sleep. I was not doing too well. And Gary stayed with her, and he woke up he woke up about midnight because she's playing with the hair on his arms. And he opens his eyes, and she said, can we play Uno now? So they spent the next 3 hours off and on playing Uno. So she gave me all the short-term, long-term memory loss. But she was there. We were in intensive care, and we knew that next day, or 2 days later, Paige was coming to take the pictures, and I was kind of disappointed because Anna was really wanting to. Oh, one of the things that I forgot to say, in the emergency room, the chaplain was, my lips getting dry on. The chaplain saw me looking at the monitor, her heart monitor, and I kept watching it, and she said, Anita, you're not looking high enough. And I looked up, and she says, higher. And she says, where does our help come from? It does not come from these doctors. It comes straight from the Lord. And it just really was a wow. And I thought it was so interesting that God used the same verse that she said, same words that I said, take her hand and walk her out of here. And he gave her that verse, I will take your hand.
That's amazing. I'll tell you what we're going to do, Anita. We're going to have Stacy pray for you and Anna. Today we're talking about idols, Anna. And would you tell us who we should put our hope in and our trust in? Just remind us. Your story has done that, but just tell us. Who do you put your hope and trust in?
God.
That's right. That's right. So